Hello and welcome to In Business Talks 2, a podcast about people who work together as a couple. Learn the secrets of business partnerships, the benefits and pitfalls of working together, be it husband and wife, father and son, mother and daughter, friends, relatives, or any other combination of business partnerships. We're your hosts, Ian and Tracy Earle, founders of In Business, a networking and business support community. We host online and face-to-face events. We'd love to see you, so why not come along? The link to book is in the show notes.
In this week's episode, we're talking to Jude and Chris Wharton, who are the husband and wife team and the co-founders of Ready Steady Websites, an off-the-shelf website and membership site template service. They launched Ready Steady Websites in 2019, and they have been running a successful digital design company, Second Floor Designs, since 2010. They are also the co-authors of the website handbook. So without further ado, let's crack on with In Business Talks 2. Welcome to our In Business podcast, In Business Talks 2. And today we have with us Jude and Chris Wharton of Ready Steady Websites. So welcome.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, guys. Good to see you both today. I suppose before we get into our conversation, we should start by asking you to tell us a little bit more about what you guys do.
So we are a husband and wife team who have a web design company. We've been in business for 14 years. And then in 2019, we launched Ready Steady Websites, which is our website and membership site template service. And it's a way of helping small business owners and entrepreneurs create a website really easily with our support in a way that they understand it so they can continue to update it, and in a way that it's actually going to get people looking at it, clicking on it and generating leads and sales for their business.
Right. Okay.
Excellent.
How did you come up with that idea?
It kind of sort of evolved really. So we are through Second Floor, which is our kind of main company, our kind of mini boutique design agency. We did a lot of custom builds, a lot of branding and that kind of stuff. And then we got into working with a female entrepreneur, and she referred a lot of her clients to us. And I said to Jude, at some point, we were like, we are doing the same kind of site over and over again. We should template this because it would be cheaper and quicker and easier for people to use. And that's kind of where the seed of Ready Steady Websites came from. And that's kind of where we got to, really.
Yeah, I think we were realising that people sort of wanted the middle ground between paying for that agency price and that complete done-for-you approach because they didn't have the budget for that. But equally, they didn't want to go and use Wix or Squarespace or the like to completely do it themselves, either because they felt they couldn't quite create what they wanted to on there, or they felt that their ability wasn't there to do it as well as they wanted to, and they needed someone to hold their hand a little bit more. And so with Ready Steady Websites we kind of filled that middle ground really. So they are templates, they are at a cheaper price option for people, but we are there offering that hands-on support, and we do some of it for them or all of it for them if they want to. And so that it sort of evolved and came out of those conversations with people.
Oh, right, excellent. So whose idea was it to go into business together in the first place, and how did that come about?
Well, Chris you'd always liked the idea of starting a business. But it really came about because we were expecting our first child. We were both in jobs where we weren't going to see this child very much if we stayed working in the same way. Like Chris was working for a design studio where he was project managing. He was in London a lot of the time with big clients in London who were demanding of his time. I worked for the local authority and I covered the whole county, which was Hampshire, which is a big county. So I could be all over the place. We just felt like that was the time to create a working sort of option for ourselves where we could be more flexible and be in charge of our days and our times. While I was pregnant, we decided to go into business, and Chris started working on the business first while I was on maternity leave. I thought I'd go back part-time and do a bit of the business as well, but actually that wasn't going to work after speaking to my employer. And so we put all our eggs in one basket while having about a 3-month-old, I think, is when we made the decision. I went, yeah, let's not have a secure salary. Let's just run a business together. And you know what? 14 years later, it's worked. So it's all good.
Yeah, I mean, was it a couple of sleepless nights before that then, when you thought about the sort of leap of faith? Because having a regular income is nice, isn't it? Because you know it pays the mortgage and everything. You can allocate, but when you're a business, when you're it, then it's a bit more tense, isn't it? So what's your initial thoughts? Were you a bit of trepidation, or let's just go for it?
I think we both kind of got to the stage in the companies that we were working with where we actually weren't really enjoying it anymore. So like Jude said, my clients were particularly demanding. I had to manage 2 teams, a dev team and a design team. Some days I was getting in at 5 a.m. Some days I wasn't finished until midnight. And I just said to Jude, look, I'm not enjoying this anymore. I'm basically just an email guy now, project manager guy. I'm not doing design work and build work anymore. So we had faith, didn't we, in our skill sets that we'd be able to go off and get some work in. And I had a 3-month notice period anyway in my job. So as soon as I handed that in, I just started looking for white label work, tiny little freelance jobs, and started building up a little bit of a client base. So by the time I properly finished, we already had a couple of little mini retainers and things. So it wasn't too much of a stress.
Yeah. And by the time I was making the decision to not go back to my job at all, like Chris already had enough work to sort of cover one salary. And I felt that because at the time it was very much billable work, getting paid for the time. And so I felt, well, if I came into the business and initially was doing all of that admin stuff and the non-billable stuff, that freed up more of Chris's time. And so it just sort of made sense to us that it was going to work. So we did just go for it. I don't really think we had sleepless nights at that point. Since we probably have, I think in the web world, things change so much. So we were doing all of these bespoke websites, or we had people on retainers, and then with the like of Wix and Squarespace and all the other software as a service options, people were starting to go and use those, and we saw kind of our workload starting to drop off a bit, and then we decided, well, there's other things we could do. So we built WordPress themes and sold those on Theme Forest, which is a marketplace. And that did really well for us for a while. People were really buying those. And that was a great sort of semi-passive income alongside our project work. Brilliant. But then the big players like Elementor and Divi and the other Astra Theme and all the other big ones came along and knocked us authors out the water who were just making these nice little themes, and then that dipped down again. And so we've been through these peaks and troughs in business, and there have been times along the way that we've definitely gone, oh my word, like if something doesn't work in the next couple of months, this isn't good. But something's always worked. And since we've created Ready Steady Websites, which is a subscription model, and we've had that ticking along nicely for the last few years, we haven't had those panicky months. Which has been very nice.
Yeah, I mean, traditionally speaking, in the design world, there's lots of peaks and troughs because you're taking on project work. But like you said, if you get some kind of retainer or subscription model in place, then it gives you that foundation to build on and gives you that kind of security.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, we found that with our memberships, weren't we? Originally, people were paying like for a year in advance. Well, it's a big chunk of money for a small business to lay out, even though it is only once a year, but splitting it into those monthly payments makes it a lot more manageable, and it's a lot better for you, isn't it, as well, that you're getting a regular bit of income coming in.
Yeah, because when you get big lumps coming, you tend to spend the big lumps fairly quickly.
We do. We've got some money in the bank. Oh, let's spend it. What shall we buy?
Yeah, there are definitely times where I think we work in partnership with people. So we do seem to attract other husband and wife teams. It's funny how it goes, but there's another husband and wife team that we work with, and they support their financial advisors, and they do various things with people around sort of getting their finances in place, creating financial freedom. And one of the things they do is help people to create a side of their business that creates the recurring income. And as part of that, we create membership sites for them. So they use us for the membership sites. So we know that every time they launch a new cohort of this program, we're going to have a certain number of people coming to us. And every time I'm like, do I want them all to pay up front so we have this nice big chunk of money? And then I'm like, no, but more sensibly, if they all paid monthly, then we've got that money every month. And it's very hard for me to work out which is best sometimes.
Yeah. It can be difficult, can't it? Yeah, it can be difficult.
So you've mentioned a little bit before about you doing more of the admin and Chris doing more of the developing when you first started so that it would free up his time. Did that just come naturally? Did that develop, or did you decide, well, I'm going to do this and you're going to do that?
I think that was a natural thing to start off with, because it was the thing that I wasn't from a web background at that point. You know, I'd worked in children's services and youth work. So I had sort of moved on from that into sort of strategic planning and delivering training and workforce development. And so, yes, doing the finances and the admin side and everything was definitely the sensible thing for me to step into at that point. And then once we started looking at different ways of working, and it wasn't just getting in projects and sort of word of mouth referrals and things, we were needing to look at different ways of marketing ourselves. I took that on as well. So I very much am the one that goes out and networks, does the social media. Sort of we started building an email list. I'm the one who does the building and the nurturing of that. And so, yeah, I think all of the roles that I take on the whole are definitely the kind of things that keep the business running. And Chris and sometimes a very nice man called Stu, who helps us out, are the ones that do the web stuff. But I don't like to be working on something I don't understand. So when I came into the business, I learned how to use WordPress. I learned HTML and CSS, which I do not use anymore, but, you know, just so that I understood websites and like worked along Chris and understood like how websites should be structured and, you know, what needs to be on them and how they need to work to actually get them converting clients and customers. And so I do, as part of my marketing, I do quite a lot of education stuff. I run workshops. Sometimes we run them together. And, you know, so yeah, that my role has expanded over time. And yeah, you still very much focus on the building and the designing, don't you, really?
Yeah, Chris is more the creative then, is it? More the creative side, yeah.
Yeah, he's creative with where he's funny because he's got this creative side where he's this designer, but then he's also a coder. He's a proper developer as well. He's not like these web people who go, yeah, I design websites and then just go and make them in Squarespace. He writes like plugins, he creates extra functionality, and so Chris has got this weird two-sided brain, and you can see the battle going on in his head.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, it was quite a rare thing to be a designer and a developer at the same time. We were sort of called unicorns at the time, but I think people are more. There's a bigger amount of people now that have that kind of dual skill set. But yeah, it's a kind of like you said. Sometimes it is a battle in my head because I just want to be all designery and float around looking at colours, and the other half of me is going, must code stuff, must make this work. So it's a bit of a battle internally sometimes.
Yeah. Well, we haven't got a clue about any of that, have we?
No. Yeah. So. It sounds good to me. So, what's your vision for the business then? I mean, is it a lifestyle business, or are you one day wanting to make it bigger so you're employing people? What's the vision and the goal of the business then?
Oh, we go a bit backwards and forwards on this, don't we? Sometimes then there's a lot of work, like, you know, there's lots of people joining Ready Steady websites at the same time, or all of a sudden a lot of them want like the done for them aspect added on. And so there's a lot of work there, and we are getting the aforementioned Stu involved to help us with that. We do think, well, maybe we should be looking to kind of expand and bring people on board. And, you know, times when we want to go on holiday and not look at our computer, but we do have to check in with the support tickets every year. So we think maybe it'd be good to have a support person who could do this for us. But that is a leap, isn't it? And then
It
it's
is.
like, but the reason, and lots of effort has to be put into making sure there's enough extra work in to make that work. Those people have to be trained, they have to be supported for a certain amount of time until they are really up with it to roll with it themselves. And then we've taken away from the purpose of starting the business to be there for our now children. We have 2 of them. And so it is an ongoing dilemma, really.
Right.
Yeah, I think the issue for us is, having both employed people in the past, we realise how hard that kind of side of business is, the HR, keeping people happy, making sure they're motivated, making sure they're busy enough because you don't want them to get bored. And I think if we ever got to the stage where we were consistently kind of overworked, that would be when we would be like, yeah, right, let's probably get Stu in. Let's bed this in properly as a process. But at the moment, like Jude said, we still got those peaks and troughs on top of that kind of base subscription, and they're easy enough to handle at the moment. So there's no real need to go out and employ people. And we're quite a small fish in a very big pond with lots of other big fishes and sharks and everything else, because it's quite a bit of a wild west in terms of the industry. And there's some real big juggernauts out there that would make our sort of growth difficult if we went too far through it, I think.
And it is, we do find, people come and join Ready Steady websites, and there's a lot of support that they require in the first sort of 3 to 6 months, possibly up to a year, if they're not as quick at getting going with things, or if they're creating a website and a membership site. And so there's a lot of hands-on support for us then. But once their website has gone live, they still like to pay for the subscription to know we're there as a safety net should they ever mess something up, or can't remember how to do something, or think they might want to change direction a bit and make some changes. But on the whole, after that first year, it's not as time intensive for us. So it is something that we can keep managing between the 2 of us. And, we've got over 200 people on Ready Steady websites now, and it's still manageable. The only times that we have it are occasionally sort of people with bigger followings sort of talk to us about, I'd love to put this out to this many people. And we go, what if even this % of them joined? Would we be able to manage that? And that's the time when we would obviously go, Stu, you've got lots of work on for the next however long.
Come and join us.
It is a hard one to work out, really. I think while our children are still at school and still do limit our days of making sure that they're home and fed and that kind of thing, I think probably we won't expand it to any sort of great size. Maybe once they're both more self-sufficient, it might be something we look at. But
just see how it goes. Do you always agree on everything?
Chris always agrees with me because
I do as well with you, don't I?
We didn't. Certainly at the start of running the business, it was because we had both been managers. It was hard to.
Was there a bit of
the dynamic at the beginning was really tricky, like much trickier than we both thought it was going to be. And actually we solved that by getting an office in the town with another company. So we office shared with another design company, and we had to be professional then because we were in the office with another person. So that forced us to make a good process and have a good dialogue with each other, and only deal with issues in the office and not have a little argument before bed or any of that kind of stuff. So although we still talk about business now before bed,
but it's now
not
talk.
An argument. It's more of a
we're
discussion.
Definitely on the same wavelengths now of how things should be run. And so now we tend not to, don't we? Like, if we've had a meeting with a potential client and Chris is really feeling like there's some red flags. In the past, if I was looking at where we were at financially and thinking, let's just take them on anyway, like that would be when there might be disagreements, because I'm the one who has the sight of the spreadsheets of the money, and perhaps Chris didn't, and so there would be times in the past, but now, especially now we've got the recurring income from Ready Steady website, so the financial side isn't such a problem. Chris goes, yeah, okay, that's going to bring us in X thousands of pounds, but it's going to be an absolute flipping nightmare and not worth it, I'll go, fair enough, completely trust your judgment. And so, yeah, I can't think of anything that we haven't agreed over for a long time.
No.
Oh, that's good then.
He's agreeing with you.
That's good. Yeah, he's agreeing with you there. Yeah, that's good. Sorry.
So how does your family fit in with your plans for your business? And
well, I think our older son thinks that, the fact we've got a business might be a good backup plan for him to ever get a job. And sometimes I'll just go into the business. It has become a bit more of a family business when we had our second son, and I did take sort of 6 months maternity leave. I did want to completely switch off as much as I could from it. Chris's dad came and did all the bookkeeping and stuff for us then. He slotted into the business for a while. Actually, my mum was our accountant for the start of it as well, wasn't she? Until we got to a point. She was our accountant until I gave up my job too. And then I think she felt she didn't want to have a complete overview of our accounts. I don't know if she felt it'd be too stressful for her. She felt we weren't earning enough money or something. I
can understand that as a mum.
Yeah, so she stepped back at that point and we got a different accountant. But yeah, Chris's dad did do our bookkeeping for a while. And the boys are interested, aren't they? Especially our eldest. He has got a ready... What was that, sorry?
How old are they, sorry?
So the older one is just about to turn 14 and the little one is 9. But yes, the older one, he has a Ready Steady website. He hasn't really put it live and out there, but he wanted to have a play with it, didn't he? And see how it worked. And, just every so often he sort of changes the type of stuff he has on there and has another little play. And it was actually quite interesting for us because I think he did that he got it when he was about 11, wasn't he?
It was lockdown, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was lockdown. Yeah. So yeah, actually younger then. So he was probably about 9 or 10 when we set this website up. Gave him the template. He was 10. Yeah. We gave him the template and he just did it. He followed it all, got the images in there, got some content in there, played around with it. And so whenever we then had a member who was like, I just can't work it out, we'd be going to ourselves, well, our 10-year-old could do it. But it was kind of good for us to test the process. Like, well, yeah, if he can pick it up, it really is.
It works, doesn't it?
Easy to use. Yeah. So, yeah, he is interested in what we do. And like all of his options that he's taken at school are very sort of IT, design, tech-based.
Yeah. Interesting. So, maybe you should get him on board teaching like the old folk like us how to do it.
Maybe you should just be our support guy. We're like, it's an unpaid internship. Carry on.
Apprentice, call it apprenticeship.
Yeah, we'll be our apprentice.
I think you've touched upon this a bit earlier on, but do you tend to talk about business in your sort of downtime, in your free time, or do you sort of like say it's 5 o'clock, that's it, no more talk about the business, or not?
We used to be really bad, like we'd be talking about it all the time. Now we're very good, I think, like once when it's dinner time and the boys are around, we don't really, occasionally we'll sort of tell them something if something exciting happened or amusing, but we tend not to talk about it at dinner. But then later in the evening, I think both of our brains tend to have a second surge later on in the evening, and we do find ourselves talking about it just before bed, which is probably not a good idea because then our brains are switched off.
They can't switch off then, can you?
Yeah.
No, but yeah, that is. But we try and be good about it, and sometimes I do just have to go, right, we've got to stop talking now.
Yeah, I think it's interesting as well because obviously the kids have never known us with jobs in inverted commas.
Yeah.
So their concept of the workplace is probably quite different to how our concept of the workplace was when we were kids.
Yeah.
So that I think already, like Jude said, our older ones already kind of got an entrepreneurial brain going on. Like, I might set up a YouTube channel that will get me viewers, that will get me ad revenue. And he's already kind of got that kind of thing in the back of his mind. Like, and I said to him at one stage, everything you do doesn't have to have a monetary outcome. You can do stuff for more enjoyment. Don't get into that mindset of like everything's got to generate you something. Just there are things in life you can enjoy without there being a payoff.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting. But yeah, like our little one's kind of not really he's interested in what we do, and I think when he thinks about jobs, he wants to be a professional footballer. So it's very different to what we do, but it's still almost entrepreneurial and backing yourself and your skills. So we'll have to see how that pans out.
Watch this space.
What I do like, though, is that he's sort of realistic with it. So he does. So where we live in Southampton. So obviously we have Southampton Football Club. That is his team. That's who we go and watch them sometimes. But also we've got Eastleigh Football Club just down the road, who are in the National League, and he has been a mascot for them before. And we went and watched their match at the weekend, because the football club that our boys play at get offered cheap tickets sometimes. And so he's quite realistic. Like, he will ask, like, well, how much do you get paid if you play for Eastleigh? Like, maybe even if I'm not the best, I could possibly still play football for a living. And I quite like that sort of level of reality. Like, he'd love to get scouted for Saints Academy, but equally he has said to me, next time Eastleigh have open trials, can I go to that? It's like, I'll hedge my bets. So I do quite like that he is sort of, as long as I can play football. And I think he's very into footballer stories. So he knows that Ollie Watkins didn't get into a top club straight away. He did work his way up sort of Div 2, Div 1 and get there that way. And so, he's quite shrewd.
He's realistic then, isn't he? Realistic expectations.
He's not aiming for the likes of Liverpool or Man City from the word go.
But neither of them seem to have the concept you might just have a gut job and go and work in an office from 9 to 5. So they may have a shock when they become adults. And it probably is because we've discussed the business out of the office hours that they sort of feel like this. But maybe we need to start working a bit harder on just talking about other people that we know who just go to jobs.
I don't know. My dad always had his own business, and my mum had a few little businesses as well, so I always knew I was going to work for myself. I think I've been employed for about 6 years in total in my whole life, and my son is always, he's 32, but he's always worked for somebody, but I think he's just getting fed up now of working for somebody, and he says, I think I want to work for myself. So I don't know if it is something that gets ingrained built in. I don't know. There might be something in that.
That's interesting as well, because when I was at school, there was no such thing as running your own business, and even when I went to university, the university was all on the implementation of your skills. There was no business stuff in the course at all. And so when we got out of university, I think I applied to 80 jobs in that summer or something stupid like that. And I only fell into web design because my mum spotted a tiny little advert in the local paper, and I was like, what's web design? And then I kind of went along. I was like, I can do that. And I just think that there's so much in the world now about being an entrepreneur, running your own business, that at least it opens the kids' eyes to the possibility of that being something they can do.
There's so much more opportunity now, though, don't you think, somehow, with the web and how things are now in the world? There's a lot more opportunity to start your own business with the social media stuff and everything else that goes on. Like you said, when I left school, you either became an apprentice and you went into an organisation, or you went into university and then got a job. There was no, well, why don't you start your own business or something like that? It just wasn't there, was it? You're right. No,
it really wasn't. But it really has changed now, hasn't it? Like, we work with a lot of nutritional therapists. So we did the website for someone who coaches new nutritional therapists to start a business, and she has sent lots of nutritional therapists our way. And then through that, the Institute of Optimum Nutrition heard about us. And they initially just saw that we'd written our book, the website handbook, and wanted to include that in their course, because part of their course, these nutritional therapists get qualified to be nutritional therapists, but they do have a module on how to start your business and the fact that you'll need a website, and these are the other things to think about. And then we've done a workshop now that we recorded and is part of their course as well. And I think that's really good. But I do have a but, in that I don't think everybody's good at running a business. I don't think it's for everybody. And I don't think that, so you qualify, let's go with a nutritional therapist as the example and carry that on. They could be fantastic. They're amazing at identifying symptoms, knowing what foods people should be eating, putting together a really good holistic package to treat all of this. But running the business may not be the right thing. And so many of them go straight from I'm qualified to I'm going to have a business. And I do think there are a lot of benefits to working for somebody else for a while, so that you can gain more experience, learn from them, see how a good business is run, see how a bad business is run. You almost learn more from that of the things, I wouldn't do that if I start my own business. And we see it in lots of areas of industry, don't we? So many people like come out of university and go, well, yeah, I'm a graphic designer now. And it's like, you've done a degree in it, but you've never designed for a client. You've never talked to clients through creating a brief that's actually going to be useful to make the project successful. You haven't done any project management. You haven't. And so as much as I really do think it's great that people are more entrepreneurial now, I do see the value, because I don't think our business would have been as successful, especially if Chris hadn't seen we've worked in a couple of other studios, hadn't seen the good sides and the bad sides of those. And I hadn't sort of experienced bureaucracy and everything and all of the things that aren't done so well in local authorities. There are good things done too. But yeah, I think that was really valuable in creating our business and making it successful. And sometimes I think maybe going straight from qualified to business owner isn't the best approach, and there is value in going and working for someone else first.
Have you found that sort of being in business together has maybe strengthened your relationship then?
Or changed it in any way?
Yeah, or changed it maybe.
I think I say to Jude quite a lot when we sort of start stressing out about like what are we going to do with the business, like how much money do we want to be making and all that kind of stuff. And I say, well, Jude, we're basically semi-retired. Like we could not work for the rest of the week and just sort of keep things ticking over, and we wouldn't make any less money. So we're in a good position, really. And I think in some ways it's kind of a lifestyle business, but we still push the business hard at the same time. And I think we spend a lot of time with each other now. We're sat right next to each other at a desk most of the day, and we're just with each other all the time. So I think from that point of view, our relationship is strong and we get on really well with each other. We don't get sick of the sight of each other. So I know a lot of people, you hear this quite a lot. You get to the end of retirement, or you get to retirement stage, and then all of a sudden, the bloke's got a job at B&Q, or he's off to the golf course every day because they literally can't stand each other because they've had 30, 40 years. He's been working for some big corporate somewhere. She's been working somewhere else. And then they come together and they're like, seriously, you're really we annoy each other. Yeah. And luckily, we don't have that issue, do we?
Yeah, you get the question a lot, don't you? You get people say, I don't know, you can work together. And it's not difficult. Well, we don't find it difficult. No, it's not difficult, is it? It's nice, isn't it? You know, someone's got your back and all that sort of thing. And
and it really works for us. But I'm in a few Facebook groups of female business owners. There's one locally, Hampshire Women's Business Group. And I put the question in there. I said, how many of you are working with your partner like I do, husband and wife teams, like working with your partner? And there were quite a few in there who were working with their partner, who I wasn't aware of. I knew what their businesses were, I knew who they were. I didn't realise that they were a couple in business. But there were so many who were just like, no way, couldn't think of anything worse. I don't know how you do it. And all of this. So I think it's the Marmite element of the business world. Some people would really love the idea. Some people really not. And I do think that it really does work for some people. And we do know quite a lot of couples in business. We know other couples who both have their own businesses and maybe support each other's businesses in certain ways as well, and that
Yeah.
works. Or they've got their own businesses and then they've got another sort of project they do together. But yes, I definitely know of couples who I think, I'm not sure.
That leads us nicely to the next question, which is one of my favourite questions. And I think, Chris, I'm going to let you go first on this one, Chris. It's the same question. But Chris, what is Jude's most annoying habit at work? Notice I said at work. What is Jude's most annoying habit at work? What really winds you up? Looks like Jude knows already.
Jude might be able to answer, but I'm not actually sure. I'm not actually sure I've got an answer for that because
I'm perfect.
I think that actually there's one thing that I've just popped into my head. When Jude gets excited and stuff on Zoom calls and phone calls, she gets extremely loud. Which you might find when you're editing this podcast that all the audio levels are topping out the whole time. But that's the only thing, and I'll put my headphones on or move to another room because sometimes it's incredibly loud. But I do also love that about her as well. So
Enthusiasm. That's what it is.
Exactly.
Okay, Jude, it's your turn now. You're going to have to be equally as nice, aren't you, or nothing?
So Chris does get loud too. I'd just like to say that. He just doesn't realise it. But Chris only does it when the other person's Zoom isn't quite such a good connection. So he obviously thinks if I shout louder, they'll hear me in Australia. No, the only thing with Chris, and I can't really complain because it shows how focused he is on his work, that if he is fully engrossed in his work, it takes a very long time for him to hear me if I'm trying to ask him something or tell him something. Or I'll think he is listening to me because he'll have made a noise and I'll go, okay, that was the acknowledgement I'm talking, I'll carry on. And then I'll realise he hasn't. And then he'll deny he made that noise that I acknowledged I was talking. So, yes, equally, he's fully focused on the business, so I can't really complain.
That's a good habit, really, though, isn't it? That's a good habit, yeah.
So if you could do it all again, if you go back 14 years, would you still do it all again? Would you do it?
Or would you change anything?
I think the only thing I'd change is, there's two things. I think we would, now knowing what we know, try and building a recurring income model a lot earlier. And build an email list a lot earlier than we did. Because we have so many people on our email list that then sort of sit there for a while and perhaps even like a year, 2 years down the line, then come and work with us. I feel like if we had used that method of nurturing people and advertising what we're doing earlier, it would have been sensible. But 14 years ago, I feel like not many people were doing that. And so, yes, I think I'd definitely go into business still.
Yeah, I think the same. Firstly, I'd buy a hell of a lot of Bitcoin if I went back 14 years.
Yeah, me too.
But secondly, I think Jude's right. Like, if particularly me, because I was Jude wasn't in the industry we are now, but I was back then. I would have made more regular blogging more of a thing and stuck with it for longer because I did have my own blog that was building up a bit of an audience. But I can see people now who are also in my industry and they've just skyrocketed because they were doing free content, free blog stuff. They've had multiple businesses and they've had tens of thousands of people who subscribe to their stuff to actually sell to. And that makes business so much easier when you've got that wider kind of audience to sell to. So, definitely audience building, nurturing along the way would have been advantageous. But in terms of kind of joining up, doing what we've done and getting to this point, I don't think I'd make many changes other than try and do it all a bit quicker and a bit sooner. But then again, you can't look back and change things, can you?
No, you can't. You can't. And I know when my previous business, my web guy used to say to me, "Oh, you need to blog. And I was a cake maker. I made cakes. I said, I haven't got time to blog. I said, I've got this cake to do for tomorrow, that one for, but this was, I don't know how long ago, probably 15, 16 years ago. And if I had, then who knows where, I could have been, I don't know, chief advisor to however many cake makers in the world, just because of my blogs and not made another cake in my life. But at the time, I didn't know that. I just was too busy doing what I was doing. So yeah. But
I mean, what advice would you give to any other sort of partners or couples who were thinking about going into business? What would be your top tips for them?
I think being clear on your roles in the business is important. I think I'd just say as well, just like have fun with it. Not get too sort of stuck into it and worried about things. And also the fact that you are a couple in business is interesting to people. It is a selling point, and do talk about it, and do sort of like get out there as a couple in business, and because that is great on social media and stuff like that. I mean, we haven't done it enough recently, but people find the combination of the two of us on video quite amusing sometimes, even if we're not intentional about it.
It's usually when we make a mistake.
Yeah.
I think it is defining the roles, and having fun with it, enjoying it, because there's no point in running your own business if you don't enjoy it, I don't think.
Yeah, and I think there's when you're working with someone that you love, you have to be more understanding as well. I think if you're in business, you might be a bit harsher, like, they're not feeling well today, or that's another day they're not feeling well, and you kind of make assumptions that maybe they're sort of stringing you along a little bit and kind of trying to make things out of nothing. But I think that goes for any business. If you want to run a business properly, you need to be more understanding of your employees anyway. And that's one of the mistakes I saw working in previous businesses, that it was all about the money, all about the employees putting in as much work as the MD was putting in. But actually, you need to be understanding that people have their own lives. And I think that goes when you're working with a couple. Actually, you need to give each other a bit of time and a bit of understanding, and work together and talk to each other and make sure you're both happy, and not kind of all the things that you do in a relationship are the same as a working relationship, but you can't keep things hidden and gloss things over when they need to be discussed. I think that's
Okay. So just before we finish, what is the best thing? Let's finish on a high. What's been the best thing about being in business together?
Just the flexibility, isn't it? And we can be there for the children and go to the school assemblies and the performances and the sports days, and the fact that we're in business together and can go and do that together is brilliant. I think that is probably, and the fact that we get to see each other all the time, obviously.
Yeah.
I think it's a weird thing to say because I know a lot of people who are risk adverse, and my dad's one of these people. He's very risk averse, and he was kind of worried that when we started up our own business that it wasn't going to be a success. I think actually running your own business gives you more job security, because you can see your trends, you can see what money's coming in the door, you know what you have to do to make the money come in. Yeah. Whereas if you're employed, your employer could turn around tomorrow and say, here's your month's notice, you're out the door, and then you've got to panic for a month, you've got to get a new job in that time. So that's one of the things that I love about running our own business. Yes, we might have some tight months, and before we got the subscription model in place, things were tricky occasionally, but on the whole, I feel more secure, and I trust Jude that she's going to run the business with me in a good fashion, that we're going to be successful no matter what we do. So so it's good, because it boils down to, you've got the freedom and you've got control of your own destiny as well, haven't you, in a way? It's nice, isn't it? It's good.
Oh, it's fabulous. So if people do want to get in touch with you and set up their own Ready Steady website, how would they do that?
So we're basically Ready Steady Websites everywhere. So our website is readysteadywebsites.com. We are Ready Steady Websites on Instagram and on YouTube and on Facebook. So they can go and find us in all of those places. Wow. But the website is definitely the best place to come and find us.
Great.
Are you guys on LinkedIn? You're on LinkedIn as well, aren't you?
Yes, we are on LinkedIn. I am Jude Wharton and he is Chris Wharton. So yes, we're quite easy to find.
Nice and simple.
Right. I'll put all those links in the show notes as well, so if people do want to get in touch with you, that they can.
Yeah. Well, it's been fabulous talking to you both.
Thank you, guys.
And thank you for taking your time out to do that today.
I've really enjoyed the conversation. It's been lovely to meet you both as well.
Take care for having us.
See you later. Bye.
Bye-bye. We're almost at
at the end of this week's show, but just as a reminder before we go, don't forget to book your place at one of our online networking events where you can meet some great business owners and build those business relationships. If you're in the Wetherby, Leeds, Harrogate, York or Wakefield areas, then why not come along to one of our face-to-face events to meet us? The best business comes from the best relationships, and the link to book is in the show notes.
Do you wish you could network with more confidence? We understand the challenges you face. Whether you're new to networking or simply looking to improve your skills, our Networking Know-How course will take you through the process and provide you with the practical tips and techniques to help you make more meaningful connections.
We'd also like to mention our books, which are available on Amazon. How to Improve Your Business Networking Skills, 52 Tips to Help You with Your Networking. Our Notably Networking one-to-one networking notebook is a place to keep all those notes from your follow-up one-to-ones. And last but not least, our 90 Days to Your Success journal, where you can plan, set and plot those actions that you will take to achieve those goals.
Thank you so much for joining us this week on In Business Talks 2. We hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, all we ask is that you simply tell a friend about the show. And please follow or subscribe so that you never miss an episode. We'd really appreciate it. So, until next time, this is Ian and Tracy, and together
we are In Business. Goodbye.
Goodbye.